All right, so let's jump right into this news roundup you sent us. It's a lot to unpack.
It is. Yeah, it seems like you want to get a grasp on what's happening globally, right? From hostage situations to,
Plane crashes, even political clashes.
and we even have a story that, well, it literally just broke about 12 hours ago.
Talk about breaking news. So let's start with what could be a turning point. I mean, this is big, right? The Israeli-Palestinian conflict, Hamas, is getting ready to release 3 Israeli hostages
Tomorrow, yeah.
as part of a ceasefire agreement.
Right.
And this comes after, well, honestly, some really intense fighting in Gaza. Everyone's looking at this as a step towards de-escalation, but is it really? I mean, could this be a genuine move toward peace? Or is this just Hamas,
Playing the game. Yeah,
yeah,
it's the question everyone's asking, isn't it?
yeah.
I mean, releasing these hostages, it does show some level of commitment from Hamas, especially when they publicly name them Eli Sharabi or Levy and Ohad Ben Ami. But let's not forget, this is just one piece of a very complex situation.
A very complex puzzle.
Exactly. Both sides say they're ready for more negotiations. But the real test is, if they can actually build on this, well, can you even call it trust?
Right. It feels incredibly fragile.
It does.
So what do you think? What are the biggest things they'll need to overcome in these
Well,
talks?
you have decades of just deep mistrust between them, right? And then you have these hardliners on both sides, the ones who see any compromise as weakness. And let's be real, we can't forget the core issues that caused this whole conflict in the first place. Land, security, who gets to represent whom politically. This ceasefire and hostage release, it's a step, sure, but it's a very long road ahead.
It is, and it kind of makes you think about all the risks we just sort of accept as part of life, you know? Like just 12 hours ago, a small plane crashed
Oh, wow.
right into a bus on a busy street in São Paulo, Brazil. 2 people died.
It's hard to imagine the scene.
It is. The chaos must have been unbelievable.
It makes you think, right? We see planes all the time, we think about airports, but we don't always think about what's below, what if something goes wrong.
Exactly, and investigators are still trying to figure out what caused the crash, but do you think this raises any bigger questions about, I don't know, like city planning, maybe even flight paths over populated areas?
I think it does. It should make cities all over the world rethink how they manage their airspace.
Mm.
Are flights too close to people's homes or where there's a lot of traffic? Do they have the right safety measures, emergency plans? This is a wake-up call, for sure.
It is, and speaking of aviation, there's that developing story out of Alaska, the flight with 10 people that vanished.
But here, no?
Yeah, and the rescue teams are dealing with some really terrible conditions up there.
It's a tough situation.
Mhm.
Flying in those remote areas with bad visibility and tough terrain, it's just inherently risky. It makes
Yeah.
you realize how quickly things can change and how important it is to have a fast, coordinated rescue system in place.
It does. Every minute must feel like an eternity for the families waiting for news.
It must.
Oh, and we actually just got an update on that flight. They found the plane?
They did.
Yeah, but sadly they found 3 bodies inside.
Oh, that's awful. That's heartbreaking. While finding the plane gives some answers, losing those lives, it's a harsh reminder of how fragile we are. It's going to be so important to understand what happened, to see if there are any lessons to prevent this from happening again.
I agree. So now let's switch gears to some political controversy here in the U.S. A federal judge just blocked former President Trump's plan to put thousands of USAID workers on leave.
I saw that.
Yeah, he said it was part of some restructuring, but a lot of people argued it would really damage the agency's ability to, well, to do its job.
This is about more than just USAID, though. This is about power, who has it, and how it's used. The judge's decision, it puts a check on the executive branch, the president. It shows that even their actions can be reviewed by the courts.
It emphasizes how important those checks and balances are, doesn't it? And what kind of effect do you think this ruling could have on future presidential actions, especially when it comes to agencies like USAID?
It could lead to more legal challenges against executive orders, especially the ones that seem politically driven or that could hurt how government agencies work.
Mm.
It also highlights the role of the judiciary, the courts, in protecting the rule of law.
And then there's another part of this USAID story that's really hitting home. We're hearing that a lot of the agency's foreign staff, they're kind of stuck. They're not sure if they can come back to the U.S.
Is that right?
Yeah, they're worried about visas, their families, what their futures hold. It's like a human side to this political battle.
Absolutely. It shows how decisions made in Washington, they have a real impact on people's lives all over the world. These employees, they're facing so much uncertainty, not knowing what's next.
It almost feels like there's been a breakdown in communication that's making things worse.
You're right, clear communication is crucial, especially when things are changing. In this case, USAID needs to be upfront with its foreign staff, give them the information they need to deal with this situation.
They need support, too, to help them navigate all of this.
Exactly. They need to know they're not forgotten in all of this political back and forth. It's tough, when people's lives are caught in the middle of these political decisions.
Absolutely. Speaking of uncertainty, there's that discovery about a rogue planet wandering through space. It's kind of blowing everyone's minds.
Yeah, the rogue planets, they really challenge how we think about planets.
Yeah.
We usually picture them orbiting a star, like our solar system.
Right, like a
But
family.
these rogue planets, they're like cosmic nomads, drifting through the galaxy, all alone.
Wow, that's incredible. How do scientists even find these things? It's like looking for a needle in a haystack, but a cosmic haystack.
Well, they use what they call gravitational microlensing. So imagine a distant star, and its light is traveling towards us here on Earth. If a rogue planet passes in front of that star, its gravity bends the starlight,
So it acts like a.
like a magnifying glass. Yeah, and that lets astronomers see these objects that would otherwise be invisible.
That's amazing. So, what does this tell us about the universe? I mean, about other planets out there?
It suggests there might be way more planets than we thought, maybe even a whole bunch of these free-floating worlds drifting around. It's a reminder that we're just starting to scratch the surface of what's out there.
It really is. And speaking of surprises, there's a study making the rounds suggesting that chocolate milk could actually be good for athletes. I have to admit, I thought it was a joke when I first saw it.
It does sound a little strange, right? But there's some science behind it. Chocolate milk has the right mix of carbohydrates and protein, which are important for muscle recovery after a tough workout. Carbs help replenish your energy, and the protein helps repair those muscles.
So it's not just a treat after hitting the gym.
Nope, more and more research shows that chocolate milk can be just as good as those fancy sports drinks for recovery. It's all about the right balance of nutrients, and chocolate milk seems to nail it.
Interesting, but what about all the sugar in chocolate milk? Isn't that bad? Especially for athletes who are really careful about what they eat?
It's definitely something to keep in mind. Moderation is key. Like with anything else, it's about balance. Choosing chocolate milk with less sugar and making sure it's just one part of a healthy diet can help with that.
Makes sense. Now, shifting gears to a story that's been all over the news. The protests in Iran, they've been so powerful, people are putting their lives on the line to demand change.
These protests are a big moment. It shows how strong and resilient the Iranian people are. It all started with the death of Mahsa Amini, that young woman who was arrested by the morality police. But it's grown into something much bigger now. It's about wanting more freedom, more accountability.
What are the protesters asking for specifically? And how has the government reacted?
They want to get rid of the rule that forces women to wear hijabs. They want more social and political freedom, and they want to end the corruption and oppression they've been living under for years. The government's response has been harsh, though. They've used force to break up protests, and they've arrested thousands of people.
It's a tense situation, to say the least. What do you think could happen? What are the implications for the region?
It's hard to say how this will all play out. The government's trying to stay in control, but these protests are so big and intense, it suggests a deep dissatisfaction that's not going away anytime soon. The whole world's watching, hoping for a peaceful resolution. But there's a lot at stake here.
For sure. Now let's talk about artificial intelligence, specifically ChatGPT. It's been the talk of the town lately. What's so special about it?
Well, ChatGPT is this AI tool developed by OpenAI, and it's pretty amazing. It can basically generate text that sounds like a human wrote it. All you have to do is give it some prompts. It can write essays, poems, even answer complicated questions. It's like a super smart conversational AI.
It sounds like science fiction come to life. What are the potential benefits and drawbacks of something like this?
The benefits are huge. It could revolutionize so many industries. Think about customer service, education, even healthcare and research.
Mm-hmm.
But we also have to be careful. There's a risk of bias in what it produces, and we have to think about the ethics of using AI to create content. Plus, there's the concern about jobs. What happens when AI gets so advanced that it starts replacing human workers?
It's about more than just the technology itself, then.
Right, it's about how we use it. We need to be responsible with AI to address these ethical and social implications head on.
Absolutely. Now let's shift gears to the economy. There's been talk of a potential recession. How worried should we be?
There are some red flags out there, like inflation, supply chain issues, and all the geopolitical uncertainty. These things are putting a lot of pressure on the global markets.
So are we headed for a recession?
It's too early to say for sure. The economy can change quickly, and there are things that could help, like government action, strong consumer spending, and innovation. It's a complex situation that's always evolving, so it's important to stay informed and make good financial choices.
Good advice. Speaking of staying informed, there's that new report about social media and its impact on mental health. What's the main takeaway? How can we protect ourselves?
This is a big one, especially for young people. The report basically says that too much social media can be linked to anxiety, depression, and body image issues. It's important to remember that social media isn't always real. It's often a curated, perfect version of reality. And comparing ourselves to that can make us feel bad.
It's so easy to get caught up in the scrolling and start comparing ourselves to others.
It is, so we need to be mindful of how we use social media,
Hmm.
setting boundaries, limiting our screen time, and doing things that are good for our mental health, like spending time outdoors, exercising, or connecting with people in person can make a big difference.
Finding that balance is key. Wow, it feels like we've covered the whole world today.
We have, from those hopeful signs of peace, well, maybe peace, to those stark reminders that life is precious, from political battles to, discoveries that change how we see the universe.
It really shows you how connected everything is, doesn't it? Even things that seem so far away can affect us, sometimes in ways we don't expect.
It's true, and it makes you realize how important it is to stay informed, to stay engaged, to stay compassionate. The world's always changing, and everything we talked about today, well, it shapes the world we live in, whether we realize it or not.
It does. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you really want our listener to take away from all of this?
I think the biggest thing is that even when the world feels chaotic and unpredictable, there's still hope, you know? We see it in how resilient people are and how people are always working to make things better, whether it's those rescue teams in Alaska or the protesters in Iran or scientists pushing the boundaries of what we know, or even just everyday people in their communities.
It's like there's so much good happening, even when the headlines are full of bad news. We can choose to focus on the negative, or we can look for the positive and celebrate those wins, big or small.
Exactly. And remember, being informed gives us the power to be better citizens. We can have those tough conversations, make informed decisions, and work towards a world that's fair and more just.
So, to our listener, as you go about your day, think about this. How do these events, even the ones that seem far away, how do they connect to your life? How might they change how you see things, the choices you make, the things you do? It's something to think about as you navigate this complex, interconnected world.
And until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep exploring.